Okay, thank you. It's Arana Mekko. Keli Antabaridecho, Elikai Arana Mekko. Hello?
Why is that? I never understood.
There's years ago I was able to explain that, but the whole Shitat Hanikud, the vocalization of letters and which vowels to put in and so on. It's a whole complicated thing in dikduk.
Okay.
It's very deko. It's a chaf safit, but it's very deko. It has a dogish in it. Okay? And so it's Keli Ato very deko. Elikai Aroni Mekko. Okay, so we're starting today the introduction to the second book of the Tanya. The Tanya consists of 5 books from the Alter Rebbe, and this second book is known. The first one is known as Sefer Shel Beinonim, the book of the intermediates. The second book is known as Shar HaYichud V'Emunah, which in fancy English would translate as the portal of unification and faith. Okay. And at the beginning, now, bless you, and apparently at some point it looks like there's something in the text that indicates that the Alter Rebbe was considering making this the first book of the Tanya, but for some reason or other it ended up being the second book of the Tanya. So if you go to the part that says Chinuch Kattan, in the yellow it's on page 11, and over there it should be around there. What page is it on? It says Chinuch Kattan. In the orange one. Chinuch, yeah, that's it. But it's titled Chinuch Kattan. Yeah? What page is it?
This one starts with Abdullah, but the next page is Chinuch Kattan.
Let me see. Yeah, that's it. Okay, page 11? Okay. So keep your places, okay? So this introduction, it is an introduction to the book, and this introduction is titled Chinuch Kattan, the Education of the Child, okay? So now this whole book is about the first verse, the first portion of Shema Yisrael, the Zohar says that Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is Yehuda Ila'a, right? The supernal unification, and Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed is Yehuda Tata'a, the unification of from the lower world. Let's put it that way. Okay. So what does that mean? So he starts off over here and says like this: Chanoch l'nar al pi darko gam ki yaskin lo yasu mimeno. King Solomon says, Shlomo Melech says in Mishlei in Proverbs, he says, educate the child in his way so that when he will be older, he will not depart from it. Okay? And that's a very serious statement. Now, what does that mean? Educate the child in his way so that when he'll be older, he doesn't depart from it. Does that make sense? Like, for example, I wonder how many of the teachers who taught you math were actually mathematicians. Huh? Anybody here who got to do math with a real mathematician? Probably not. Okay.
I like maybe one.
Yeah. Now, what's the difference between a real mathematician and an elementary school teacher of math or a high school teacher of math? It's a huge difference, right? And as a matter of fact, some of you might remember this, but at some point, I don't know what they're doing nowadays, but all the math that most of us are familiar with is base 10. Did you ever do other bases? You did it, yeah, Mayor, or you did it with your kids' homework or whatever? You actually did it. It's a whole other way of doing math, and the kids had no trouble with it. The teachers had trouble. They couldn't wrap their heads around it. Okay, and so when you're teaching a child math, you have to, whatever subject you're teaching, you got to start at the level that the student is at, right? So the first part of the verse makes perfect sense. Chinuch l'nar al pi darko, educate the child in his way, right? In other words, at his level. We can open the window, Michal, it's fine. Want to open the window? Just pull the big one on top, right there. Just pull it open. That's it. There must be one, just one is enough. So that makes sense, right? But now, what if the child grows up and he thinks that all there is to math is addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division? And he thinks that's all there is to math, right? So what's so good about that? He obviously doesn't know what math is. Okay, he knows 4 functions, but he doesn't know what math is, right? So the second part of the verse is problematic. What does that mean? So educate the child in his way makes sense, but so good. So gam ki yaskin lo yasu mimena, said that when he's going to be older, he's not going to depart from it. Okay, I taught for a number of years. I taught at a Solomon Schechter school. Right? And tragically, and this is a problem not just in Solomon Schechter schools, it's a problem in Jewish education in America and in Europe, especially if you're not living in the big cities. There's a dearth of teachers. The joke is the principal is interviewing someone and says, "Oh, you speak Hebrew, you're going to teach grade 5. Yeah, but I was a hairdresser in Tel Aviv. Doesn't matter, you speak Hebrew." And they still today, because like I have a son who's a principal in Vancouver. To find a teacher is very difficult. And where do the Israelis come from? So a lot of them, their husbands are like working at some kind of big corporation. They left for a couple of years, and the wives, some of them, say they're looking for some additional income, so they become teachers in a Jewish school. But the knowledge that some of these people have is so childish. And here's the problem. You get a kid sitting in class. The kids are intelligent, right? And they're being taught Yiddishkeit, from people who know very little about it and have a very, very childish understanding of it. And then I've seen it many times. The kid becomes bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, and you say, goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
This is child play, right? So science and math and this and that and computers, they're learning on sophisticated levels, and they're learning Yiddishkeit on kindergarten level, not even, right? So what is King Solomon saying? Educate the child in his way so that when he'll be older, he won't depart from it. So good. So you're going to have a 70-year-old Yid who's going to think about God in a childish way, an old man in the sky with a long beard, right? What's so good about that, right? But King Solomon said it, so we have to understand what he meant, right? So the Alter Rebbe continues, Al pi darko, in his way, mashma, the implication of that phrase is she'ena derech ha'emet lamito. That means that you're educating the child in a way that is not emet. Now this is an important term. There's emet, and there's emet lamito. There's truth, and there's absolute truth. Okay, so is it true that math is multiplication, division, subtraction, and addition? Yeah. Is that the truth of math? No. Right? Is that the emet lamito? Right? It's true that you like beer and that this one likes coffee and this one likes that. That's your preferred drink, right? So but I come and I say to you, hey, wait a minute, I love coffee, you should love coffee also. No, that's not emet lamito. Emet lamito is that if it's true for me, it's true for you. If it's true for you, it has to be true for me also. Okay? But when you're educating a child and you're teaching him a pidako in his way, so you got to teach him in a way that's going to be true for him, but it's not the whole truth. Right? And if that's the case, my malyuta, what's the great advantage that King Solomon says? Shigam piaskin lo yasu mimena, that when he'll be older, he won't depart from it. Now, the style of the Alter Rebbe is he starts with a question. He goes into a whole deep lesson, and if you don't stay to the end, you don't even remember what the question was in the first place. But at the end, he answers it. Okay, but this is just his jump start. Okay. So he says like this: it's known. Kishoshei avodat Hashem. The roots of the service of God, Yisodoteha and its foundations, Hein dechilu urechimu. Dechilu urechimu are Aramaic words. Dechilu means fear and love. Now, all human behavior is motivated by fear, love, or a combination of the two. Okay? The Zohar calls love and fear and love, the Zohar calls it Trei Gatzin, the two wings with which our service of Hashem ascends to heaven. And just like a bird can't fly with just one wing, right? So you can't serve God with only fear or with love only. You have to have fear and love. And that's the way we're wired. Okay? You can't get away from that. You either are drinking this drink because you like it, or you're not drinking it because you don't like it, right? In psychology, they call it, they talk about flight or fright. No, how's it go?
Flight or flight.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight, you know? And that's in sense. So the foundation of serving God, everything comes down to love and fear. Okay. Hayira shoresh v'yesod l'sur meira. Fear of God is the root foundation of staying away from the evil, right? In other words, just correct me if I'm wrong. You played with outlets when you were a kid, the electric outlets? You never stuck anything into it? No, what a good boy. You did.
Else was good.
You're a good boy. I did. How many times did you do it? Once. Once was enough, right? You didn't do it again, right? Why didn't you do it a second time? Because you didn't want to get, you didn't want to get zapped, right? So fear is the motivator of staying away from evil, right? Okay. And v'ahava, love, is liva'asei tov, right? King David says, sur mera v'asei tov, stay away from evil and do good. So love is the root of, in other words, why do you want to do something good? Because you're wired that way. That's what love is. You understand? You're wired in such a way that you experience ahava, right? And that emotion is what motivates you to do something positive, right? Plain and simple. Now, it's good to know that the Hebrew word ahava, there's two schools of opinion as to how, if there are words that have just two letter roots, and in the older schools, so they do say that words have two letter roots, and the root of ahava is hav, hey bet, and hav means to give. Okay, it's a very deep concept. How does your love grow? It grows by giving. Okay, your capacity to love another person is increased by giving, by doing. The more, that's why, according to halacha, and I'm saying this seriously, who loves whom more? The parent loves the child more, or the child loves the parent more? The parent loves the child more. And why is that? Because the parent is giving to the child. And the one who is giving loves more. And I've seen this with people when their parents become so old that they become dependent on the children taking care of them. I've seen the love of the child for the elderly one grow and grow and grow, because that's the way we're wired. The more you give, the more you love. Okay. So, ahava is the motivation for doing positive things. Right? So ahava is the motivation for doing positive things and fulfilling the positive mitzvahs. The oraita with the rabbanan, both the biblical ones and the rabbinical ones. Kimoshi bayebim kamanas will be explained in their place. And in the parentheses, he says, "Mitzvat chinuch hi gam ken b'mitzvat asei k'moshe katuv b'orach chaim b'siman shin and gimel." Educating your children is also a positive commandment. Now, so here comes the big question. The hine, you want to read? It's okay? I didn't mean to disturb you. והנה באהבה הכתיב בסוף פרשת עקב, concerning love, it says at the end of the Torah portion, Akev, in Bamidbar. Moshe Rabbeinu is talking to the Eden. I'm sorry, it's in Devarim. Akev, he says, Asher Anochi mitzaveh etchem la'asotah. I'm commanding you to do this. What is it that I'm commanding you to do? Li'ahava et Hashem. I'm commanding you to love God. Now, which word doesn't fit over here? command. Okay, which other word doesn't fit? La'asota, to do it. Why doesn't that word fit?
Because it's unnecessary.
It's not just that it's unnecessary. Does it make sense? Do you do love? Right? Is it a matter of asiyah? Love is an emotion, right? So you can say, I'm commanding you to love God. As it says, via hafta Hashem Elokecha, you shall love God. There's a machlekes, but as to whether it's a mitzvah to love, can you be commanded to love God or not? When I was head teacher for a number of years at Solomon Schefter, so the kids who was getting into fights would be sent to my office. And so I had a bench outside the office, and I would say to them, you're going to sit over here on this bench till you become friends. So a lot of the kids would just say, okay, look, it's not like we both want to play, let's finish the fight and let's go. And the smart kids would say, you can't force me to like him. Okay, so the Seder. So the question is, what are we going to do? Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm commanding you to do this, to love God. It's a Tzarich Lahavin, in the yellow, we're on page 13. I don't know what page you're on the orange. It's a Tzarich Lahavin, so we need to understand. How does the verb asiyah pertain to love, which is an emotion that's experienced in the heart? Good question, right? The matter is as follows. There are two types of love of God. You okay? Yeah? You want a drink of water? No. Okay. So there are two types of loving God. Here, come over here so I can see him, because I know that he prefers. Turn around, put your book over here, or whatever. And just the whole prefers. I know, but I like to see you.
Will you watch me? I can't find a seat.
I beg. There's a couch if you want. But then it's more expensive. Then the therapy is more expensive. Okay. So there's two kinds of love of God. Ha'achat the one is described as follows. Klot hanefesh. Oh, the nature teacher is going for plastic. Ha'achati klot hanefesh. One type of love is described as klot hanefesh. Now this is an interesting word. Klot hanefesh. You know the word vayachulu hashamayim v'haaretz? You know the word chosin and kale? Yeah. It's all the same word. Kale, klot hanefesh. Klot hanefesh I would translate as the expiring of the soul. Okay. In other words, did you ever read Shakespeare? Did you study literature? Who do you study literature? What is this?
They studying.
So in Shakespeare, when he speaks about dying, he's actually talking about the orgasm. Now they're going to start reading Shakespeare. Okay. Now,
And the class can stay with.
Where in Shakespeare?
where in Shakespeare?
I never
In the sonnets. Okay. So, klot hanefesh is like having a spiritual orgasm, so to speak. In other words, it's like you're so in love with God that it's actually painful that your soul is still in your body. Okay? In other words, all you want is like let me get out of here. I want to be with the one that I love. Okay? That's klot hanefesh. Vayechulu hashamayim v'haaretz, the world came to, the creation of the world came to its conclusion, and now it goes into a new state, and that is Shabbos. So,
Does that connect to color?
and it's the yearning and the desire. Okay? So the natural, so he says, one type of love is klot nefesh b'tiva. It's the natural yearning of the soul to expire. You can use the word aspire if you want also, but expire is even stronger. It's natural of the natural yearning of the soul el bora, to her creator. In other words, the natural state of your soul is that your neshama is not interested in going shopping, is not interested in going to the shopping center or going to the soccer game or this and that. It's like Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, it was his yortzeit yesterday, by the way. Did you know that? He didn't see it on Jerusalem Post, that's true. Okay. So his davening was extremely intense, and he was a good friend with Reb Baruch of Mezhebosh, the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, who davened very, you know the story, davened very, very quietly, like more like sitting meditation, as an example. And the Berditchever and the Alter Rebbe used to daven in padded rooms, because in 1 second he was here, then he was crashing into the wall, then he was jumping on the table would get knocked over, and like the story is like he was making Kiddush once on Pesach at the Seder, and he's making Kiddush, and in the middle of Kiddush he just went into this ecstasy, Amish knocked over the whole table. Like he didn't realize what he's doing. You understand? Like he knocked over the table and everything, and his wife was obviously holier than him, and she reset the table, etc. Right? So the natural state of the soul is that it wants to be in union with its creator.
To return to the creator.
To be in union with it, to return to the creator. Now, how do you get to experience that? So Dr. Rebbe says, and this is very, very Chabad, this next line, Kasher titgaber nefesh hasichlit al chomer, when the intelligent soul overpowers the material, the materialism of one's life, the tashpilehu, and it knocks it down, v'tachniyehu tachteha, and it subjugates the material to itself, to that. In other words, we are composite beings, right? We have a nefesh elokit, we have a divine soul, we have a nefesh sichlit, we have an intelligent soul, and we have a nefesh bahamit, we have an animal soul, right? And the most of the time, I mean, I hate to admit it, but if at the end of the day, if I sit down and I think about how much of my day was run by my nefesh bahamit, and how much of my day did I actually even think about or recognize that I also have a divine soul, right? And you think about it, and you see the majority of our lives is being driven by the nefesh bahamit, right? Like, how do you choose which shul to go to? By the Kiddush. For a lot of people, anyway. Didn't mean you. Huh? Nowadays, that might be by the Rebbitzin. I don't know, but whatever the case, you understand? So
what do you call the soul that the intelligent soul has to overcome?
The intelligent soul has to overcome. In other words, you have to basically meditate and think about, okay, who am I? Right? Once the Kotzker Rebbe went over to the Chassid and put his hands on the Chassid's stomach, and he said, Shalom Aleichem Shabbos. And the Chassid said, what? He says, I'm saying Shalom Aleichem to Shabbos. So the Chassid said, but that's my stomach. So he says, yeah, but I noticed every time you say Lekovit Shabbos, you're patting your stomach. Right? So your Shabbos is your stomach, right? And you understand? So who am I? Who is my real self? Who is my essence self? Okay? Now, you know, there's an expression when I'm eating, everything else is dead. You've heard of that, right? You know, you see people that they're sitting there and they're eating, nothing in the world. You know, you can tell them, you know, this guy just died, and he says, oh yeah, and he keeps on eating, and oh, this one too, oh yeah, it keeps on eating, pass the ketchup, you know, whatever it is. You understand? So who is this person? Well, this person right now is a behemoth, right? But who am I? Okay. So
is the material self the same, synonymous with the animal soul in this context?
In this context, now the animal soul comes from a very, very high place, by the way, and we're not putting it down. It's just that when it gets corrupted, you understand. Like for example, the Talmud says that when Hillel would go to eat, he would say something that was like saying, "I'm going to pay rent to my body." Okay, understand? You can't do a mitzvah if your soul is not in your body. If you want your soul to live in your body, you got to pay rent. You got to give it food. You got to give it sleep, etc. Right? Exercise and so on. So that's necessary. But the question now is, okay, who's in the driver's seat? Who is driving your life? So when you meditate and think about deeply, frequently. Now you got to understand that the word hitbonenut is basically the short definition of hitbonenut is to meditate deeply and frequently. Okay. Now, so when you think about this and you think about, wait a minute, the real I is my nefesh hasichlit, is my intelligent soul. The real I is my divine soul, okay? And that's who I am. And the materialism is just the reality that we have to live in, okay? So then your desires are going to be the desires of your soul rather than the desires of your kishkas. Okay? So, Azai, then when you do that, titlahev, in the yellow one on page 14, Azai titlahev v'titlahet, so then the soul will catch fire. B'shalhevet ha'olam me'eleha, it'll be like a flame that just rises on its own. You ever see phosphorus when it's exposed to air? Phosphorus, when you take it out of the liquid and just expose it to air, it just goes, it just catches fire. Okay? So when you're really in touch with your neshama is it catches fire. Okay? It's like a flame that rises on its own. And it starts rejoicing and having tremendously deep pleasure with Hashem, her creator. Al Hashem. See, we're learning about joy anyway. And it has delight with God. Ta'anug nifla. It has this awesome pleasure, better than Ben and Jerry's. Okay? And it has this awesome delight and pleasure of experiencing being with God. V'hazochim l'ma'alat ahava rabba zo, and those who merit to to this the second line on page 14. And those who merit this great state of love, this great love, tzaddikim. These are the people that are we call them tzaddikim. Kidichtiv, as it says in Psalms, Simchu tzaddikim b'Hashem, tzaddikim rejoice in God. Ach, lo kol adam zocher laseh. But not every person merits to have such a tremendous love for God. Ki lazeh tzarich zichuch, and here, not that you can't, but it's not likely. But here's what you need to know to do that. Ki lazeh tzarich zichuch. In the yellow, it's the last line on 14. Estrechaya. Give me, see where the Shas is? See there's books lying flat on top of the Shas? Second shelf, right there. That's it, right here. Give me one on top there. Yeah. Come here. Shalom Aleichem. Kilazet tzarich, to achieve this level of love. As a matter of fact, if you want one with English, there's another one that was right next to it on the right there, so we'll get that, okay? A smaller version. Kilazet tzarich zichuch hachomer b'ma'od ma'od. For this, to achieve this, you need to have achieved. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, there's two of them, but that's it. Amarim. Yeah. To achieve this, you need. Wow, open that right to the page. Okay, I'll show you where we are. To achieve this love of God. So it's the sixth line, tzarich, the word line, the word starts with the word tzarich. To achieve this, you need to have a clarified material being. So, and I'll explain that in a second. The Gam Torah b'masim tovim harbei, and you also have to have a lot of Torah knowledge and a lot of mitzvahs. Lischot l'neshama elyona, to merit having such a supernal soul. שלמעלה ממדרגת רוח ונפש, כמו שנתבהר בראשית חוכמה שער אהבה. Okay? In other words, just like for example, in art, in sciences, not everybody could be a mathematician. Not everybody could be an artist. Not everybody can even appreciate art. Okay? You have to have a certain quality soul to be able to do those things, right? The example that Rav Steinsaltz gives is, for example, let's say I want to tell you about this beautiful bridge that I saw. You heard of the Golden Gate Bridge? Now, if you're on a certain level, I can describe it to you in words, and you can appreciate the bridge. If you're not on that level, then I need to show you a picture. If you're not on the level of that by seeing a picture, you get a sense of what it's really like, then I need to take you there and actually show you the bridge. And then if you're on a very high level, for example, of consciousness, I can show you the formulae, the mathematical formulae that were used to create the bridge, and you look at those formulae and you say, wow, what a beautiful bridge. Okay? You understand? It's a matter of, like there are neshamas that Like, for example, Reverend Silver was saying that when she lived in the States, she was doing work with this Native American healer. Okay? And at one point she started bringing him to lectures in Muncie and so on. And he comes into this Jewish house and he walked by the mezuzah and he went like, "Wow, what's this?" and like everybody was surprised. And he looked at them and he says, "Do you realize how much power there is in this? What is it?" Okay. Now, how many people have that sensitivity? Okay. So, how many people have the sensitivity that when they're saying Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, there's no question in their mind, "I'm ready to die for God." Right? How many people, like when they're giving tzedakah, they're just dancing that they can do it, right? So you have to have a very purified material existence to be able to experience that, right? You were 9 years old. Your mother made you a birthday cake. She invited some guests, and she said, every guest gets a slice. And if there's going to be 9 people, we're cutting it into 9 pieces. If there's going to be 18 people, we're cutting it into 18 pieces, right? So if you're like a very holy neshama and 18 people show up, you're so happy that, wow, look at this, with one cake, I can make 18 people happy, right? But if you're very, very attached to your materialism, right? Every person that comes into the room, my slice is getting smaller. Right? So the first thing is, he says, you need to plain and simple, you gotta have a purified body. And for that, what do you need to do for that? Well, diet is going to be important. How much you eat is going to be important. When, how frequently you eat, and how you live your physical life. Okay, the fact is that's going to be part of it. And another part of it is going to be plain and simple, training the body to realize, listen, mister, you are my body. I pay rent. That's it. Okay? You're not in the driver's seat. Okay? So that's one thing that you need. The second thing that you need is, you need a lot of Torah. Torah is Hashem's giving himself to us through giving us his wisdom. Okay? When you're learning Torah, you're absorbing into your mind divine wisdom. Okay? You need a lot of Torah. And Masim Tovim, you actually have to do a lot of mitzvahs. You actually have to do and do and do and do. Okay? If you fulfill these 3 requirements, you may merit to have the soul of a tzaddik. You may merit to experience this tremendous love for God, this natural, spontaneous love for God. Okay? So that's the first kind of love that he's talking about. What's the second one? Vashenit. Hashenit hi ahava shekol adam yachol lehagia eleha. The second type of love is a love that every person can achieve. How? A clarified body, lots of Torah and mitzvahs. Okay? To reach her, to reach that level of love. Ahava is feminine noun. Okay? And how do you achieve this? You need to learn how to be a good meditator. In other words, meditation has many, many different levels. There's a Yid in the old city. His name is Gil Lux. Have you ever met him? Did you ever meet him? Yeah. Did you read his book, Coming Back to Earth? Gil Lux is a Yiddish guy, a Jewish guy. He's the tefillin guy, but he used to sit in Central Park and meditate, and Allen Ginsberg used to come and wash his feet. And hundreds of people would come and sit by him to be present while he was meditating. And all he would be doing is he'd be sitting there looking at the tip of his nose and meditating. And executives would come and leave their offices and just to sit in his presence, okay? He, in his book, Coming Back to Earth, he describes that he used to be able to sit and meditate naked in a thorn bush for 3 days straight, uninterrupted. Okay? Which of those things doesn't appeal to you? The thorn bush or 3 days straight without eating?
Sitting there.
Well,
It's all very appealing to me, but
It's all very appealing, yeah, but you're
A lot
not.
of work.
But you're not.
takes a lot of work.
Okay. Now, the Bonen Hintei is the ability to meditation. By the way, the plain and simple definition of meditation, and if you don't know much about it, a good book that I recommend is by Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan called Jewish Meditation. It's safe meditation and so on. Now, if you're going to go into advanced meditation, you better have an advanced master guiding you, because you could end up going somewhere that you might not know how to come back. Okay. So, but basically, good meditation means that you have the ability to keep, meditation simply means thinking about what you want to think about without allowing your mind to interrupt, without allowing things to interrupt you. Okay. And the example that Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan gives is very simple, and you can do it right now. For 30 seconds, everybody think about nothing. And every time that you think about something, stop and go back to thinking about nothing. I'll explain it in a second, but just please go ahead and try to do it. Okay, I think that everybody will agree that you didn't really succeed on doing that, right? Why? Because it seems like the mind has a mind of its own, right? You wanted to think about one thing, and other thoughts kept on being generated, right? So to learn to meditate basically means to learn to be able to think of that which you want to think about for lengthy periods of time. Okay. So whether it's you want to meditate on the flower, whether you want to meditate on the olive base, whatever it is, to be a good meditator means that you're able to enter into the thing that you're thinking about, and eventually, like just to give a simple example, you get so connected with the thing that you're thinking about that you can see it from all sides, you can see it from inside, you can see it from outside, etc., etc. Okay? So that's one thing, one condition. And the other condition is mi'umka de liba. It has to be from the depth of your heart. In other words, meaning to say, it has to be something that it makes a difference to you. It matters. Okay. So, and what is it that you need to be meditating on? בדברים המעוררים את האהבה להשם בלב כל ישראל. You need to meditate on those things that will arouse the love of God in the heart of every Jew. In other words, it's guaranteed that every Jew who will meditate on these things will come to love God. Okay? Now he's going to start teaching the meditation, but that's what we're going to continue with tomorrow. Okay? But so please remember where we stopped. Believe Kol Yisrael in the heart of every Jew. So just realize that that's where we stop now. So if those of you who don't have any practice experience with meditation, just start practicing very simply. And by the way, Rabbi Kaplan explains the reason why meditation is so much connected with breathing exercises is because the word for because just like breathing is generally an involuntary action, you just breathe, right? So to breathe consciously, to breathe the way you want to breathe, it takes concentrated effort. And by practicing that, it increases your ability to think about what you want to think about, to meditate on what you want to meditate on.
Thank you.
Okay? So the Chaim and I can just tell you one thing, that if you put this, what we're learning into practice, just this little 2-page chapter, or introduction rather, it's like Mamish going to make, it will make a huge difference in everything that you do, in your relationship. Okay. Have a good day. We continue tomorrow, Mr. Hashem. Yeah?
Thank you. What's going on? Someone's good.